Chapter 10 The Red Riding Hood Kingdom. The subtle shakes of the parrot cart finally rocked Alex and Connor to sleep. If they hadn't been so exhausted from the previous restless night and eventful day, the shock of discovering the glass slipper in the procession would have kept them up all night. The next morning, they awoke just as the cart was arriving at the northern village where it was destined for. The first thing Alex did when she awoke was to make sure the slipper was still in her tight grip, as it had been when she'd fallen asleep. She couldn't let go of it. She was afraid that if it wasn't in her hands at all times, it might disappear just as easily it appeared. The mystery of how it got into her bag was still the most prominent thing on their minds. "Do you think it was magic?" Connor asked Alex. "Maybe the slipper knew we needed it and it transported itself into your bag." "I read enough fantasy books to know that is a possibility," Alex said. "And after everything we've been through, I wouldn't be surprised. But the point is, we have it now. It's one less item we need to collect. So let's focus all our energy into getting a hold of Red Riding Hood's basket." She wrapped a blanket around the slipper for safekeeping and stored it in her bag. They didn't want any unwanted attention from carrying it around. "I hope Cinderella or Lambton don't send soldiers after us once they realize it's gone," Connor said. Alex hadn't thought about that. What if, as they were speaking, Lambton was putting together a band of soldiers to find them and take them into captivity? "And we'll tell them the truth and worry about it when it happens," Alex said. "But let's keep moving in the meantime." There didn't appear to be any roads or paths on the map that went to the Red Riding Hood Kingdom, so the twins were forced to travel straight through a forest of elm trees to get there. Alex read from the journal as they walked. As everyone knows, the Red Riding Hood Kingdom is surrounded by a tall wall to keep out the wolves. There are guarded entrances into the kingdom along the perimeter of the wall. "So we'll find the wall, find the entrance, and be inside the kingdom in no time," Alex said. "What if they don't let us inside?" Connor asked. "I can't imagine why they wouldn't let us in," Alex said. "But if they don't, this time, let me do the talking." An hour or so of walking later, the twins could see the wall surrounding the kingdom in the distance. It was massive. It was 30 feet tall and made from enormous gray bricks. The same warning sign was posted on the wall every few feet or so. "Wolves beware. The Crawl Decree and approved by the Happily Ever After Assembly. Wolves of any kind, breed, or color are strictly prohibited from entering the Red Riding Hood Kingdom. All trespassers will be killed and turned into rugs, coats, or decoration. You have been warned. Now be gone." "Wow," Connor said. "The wolves are definitely not getting in there." They walked beside the wall for another couple of hours, but never found an entrance. Alex reread the journal and found a part that she had missed. There is a north entrance, a south entrance, an east entrance, and a west entrance. Each has its own path that goes to the center of the kingdom, where the town is. There is only one town in the Red Riding Hood Kingdom. The rest is farmland. "Oh no," Alex said. "I misread the journal. Apparently there are only 4 entrances into the kingdom." "How close are we from one of them?" Connor asked. Alex looked closely at the map and her eyes widened a bit. Connor could tell it wasn't going to be good news. "It looks like we're right in between the west entrance and the south entrance, which means more walking," Connor said, with a furrowed forehead, his hands on his lips. "Yes," Alex said, bearing the bad news. "About a day or two's worth." Connor walked around in a circle, frustrated beyond belief. "This is annoying," Connor yelled. "Why can't anything be easy?" "Connor, everything's okay. It's just going to take a little longer to—" "No, Alex, it's not okay," Connor yelled. "We've been in this world for almost a week. I want to go home. I miss Mom. I miss my friends. I'm even starting to miss Mrs. Peters. There, I admitted it." Connor was so upset that he kicked a tree, but he ended up just hurt his foot. "Ouch!" Connor yelled. "I miss home too, but there's nothing I can do about it," Alex said. "We'll get home when we get home, and that's that. But in the meantime, it doesn't do us any good to be angry. We just have to get through it." Connor crossed his arms and shoulders slumped. He was aggravated almost to tears. Alex assumed they were closer to the southern entrance and led the way forward. Connor verbalized his frustrations the entire way. I miss pavement. I miss sidewalks, Connor ranted. I miss our crappy rental house. I miss our neighborhood. I miss that dog down the street that barks constantly through the night. I miss homework. I miss getting detentions for not doing homework. Let it out, Connor, Alex said. You'll feel better. I hate this place, Connor continued. I hate the dirt paths. I hate the man-eating witches. I hate the mutant-sized wolves. I hate sleeping outside. I hate bird trolls. I hate all trees. Wait, that's it! The trees! Connor searched the surroundings and ran ahead to a big tree next to the kingdom's wall. What are you doing? Alex asked. I'm getting inside the kingdom. I'm going to climb this tree and hop over the wall. Connor yelled back at her. He started climbing it at a very quick and determined pace. It's a 30-foot drop on the outside at least, Alex shouted at him. Come on, Alex, Connor said and gestured for her to follow him. I'm not climbing that tree, she said. You climbed up Rapunzel's tower, but a tree is out of the question, he asked mockingly. And I should have done that, I agree, she said, but was ignored. Connor was almost at the top of the tree. Alex ran over to the tree and climbed a little ways after him. Connor, please come down from there. I'd rather travel slowly and safely than quickly and dangerously, she said. Connor stood up the tallest branch of the tree. The top of the wall was just a few feet away. I'm going to jump the wall and see if I can spot a way down, Connor said. Connor, don't be stupid. Climb down right now. I'm going to hurt yourself, Alex demanded. Wish me luck, Connor said, and prepped himself to jump. 1, 2, 3. Connor jumped off the tree branch and soared into the wall. No! Alex yelled. He had jumped a little too hard. He missed the wall by a few inches and flew over it head first. Alex! Connor bellowed as he fell. She heard a large thump from the outside, but he couldn't see anything. Connor! Alex screamed. Connor, you're right. Connor, you're alive? She was hysterical. She clambered up the tree faster than any other animal she had ever seen in a documentary. Connor, answer me, she pleaded. Can you hear me? Are you hurt? Alex heard laughter just as she reached the top of the tree on the other side of the wall. She saw Connor laying safely on a big stack of hay. Hey, Alex, Connor said with a big smile on his face. I know, it was so entertaining, Connor said. Wait, Connor, you scared me to death, Alex shouted. I know, it was so entertaining, Connor said. Do you really think I would have jumped if I didn't see something to land on? I'm glad you're alive so I can kill you myself, Alex said. Jump over, it's a soft landing, I promise, he said. Fine, Alex said. She carefully tossed up her bag before jumping over the fence. Connor was right. The landing was soft. They were covered in hay, and they brushed it off each other. Take a look at this place, Alex said, as she and Connor journeyed into the Red Riding Hood Kingdom. They felt as they entered another dimension all over again. There were rolling hills and a farmland for as far as they could see. Cows and sheep were grazing across the fields. Shepherds with curved staffs and shepherdesses with large bonnets attended to the animals with their dogs. Everything's so peaceful here, Alex said. I feel like I'm in a nursery rhyme. They must be bored out of their minds, Connor said. I wonder whose land is this, Alex said. A few moments later, Alex got an answer. They passed a big wooden sign stuck in the ground that said Bo Peep Family Farms. The scenery was so pleasant that the time went by fairly fast. After they traveled a while longer, they peeked and pointed rooftops on the town and they came into view. They couldn't see much while looking at from the outskirts, but once they were in the center of it, the town came to life. How adorable! Alex screamed at first sight of the town. It was so dainty and picturesque that they felt they were in a theme park. It was filled with tiny cottage homes and shops made of bricks or stone and hay roofs. A bell in the steeple of an old schoolhouse rang. Many staff-carrying men and bonnet-wearing women, like the ones they had seen in the fields, walked about the town, pulling goats and sheep along with them. Among the many stores and shops were the Henny Penny Bank, Jack Horner's Pie Shop, and the Patty Cake Bakery. The Shoe Inn, just adjacent to the main town, was a boot of gigantic proportions, turned to a working hotel. In the very center of town was a grassy park that hosted several memorials and monuments. Alex was doing mental backflips at the sight of each of them. A small brick wall that stood itself with a golden plaque on it that said, "Sir Humpty Dumpty's Wall. You are a good egg and shall be missed by more than just the king's horses and men. Rest in pieces." Just past Humpty Dumpty's wall was a small hill with a well on top of it. A sign pointing to the hill said, "Jack and Jill Hill." In the middle of the park was a circular fountain. A statue of a young shepherd boy stood in the center of it, and water poured from the mouths of the sheep that were under him. The carved dedication of the fountain read, "In the memory of the boy who cried wolf. You are a liar, but you are loved." The twins were so enthralled by everything that they were getting strange looks by the villagers and townspeople. "This place reminds me of that miniature golf course in town," Connor said. "Not the one by us, but the really legit one across town, where all the rich kids live." At the edge of town, with the best view of the park, was Red Riding Hood's castle. The castle had 4 tall towers that could be seen from anywhere in town. It probably had red wolves and dark red roofs. A moated circle on the castle and had its own watermill. The castle looked massive from afar. However, as the twins moved closer to it, they realized it wasn't very big at all. It was just built to look big. The moat around it was so small the twins could easily step over it. "I bet you Red Riding Hood's basket is in there somewhere," Connor said. Alex retrieved a journal from out of her bag and began reading the specifics of collecting the basket to Connor. Unlike any other palace or castle, Red Riding Hood isn't that difficult to break into. The castle was built so quickly after the Crawl Revolution that builders forgot to add some basic necessities. The kitchen windows located at the back of the castle have no locks on them. The Red Riding Hood Kingdom is the safest and smallest of all the kingdoms. Therefore, they're short-handed on soldiers and guards. The halls of the castle are only patrolled until midnight, and the guards don't return until dawn. Sneak into the castle between midnight and dawn through the kitchen windows. Stay away from the main halls, and you should be fine. Queen Red Riding Hood has a special room in her chambers devoted to all the baskets she acquired and been given over the years. Find this room, and you'll find the very first basket, the one she took with her to her grandmother's house all those years ago. You don't need to collect the whole basket, just a small chunk from the tree bark that surrounds the rim. It should be easy to identify as there's already a chunk of the tree missing when I collected it. And I was just hoping we could ring the doorbell and ask for it," Connor said. Alex looked up at the tower at the windows. She wondered which windows belonged to the room they would find the basket in. And as she looked up in the castle, something else entirely caught her eye. "Look over there," Alex said, and pointed to the sky. Connor turned to look in the direction she was pointing. Sticking straight up in the air was 100 feet or so of an enormous beanstalk. "That must be Jack's beanstalk," Alex said. "Are you think what I'm thinking?" "No, but I'm sure you want to go see that beanstalk," Connor said. Before he could finish, Alex was taken off toward it. Twins went through the town and had to take a trail leading out of the town to get to the beanstalk. They passed a few cottage homes and more farmland as they traveled. It was much farther than they had thought. Eventually, they saw the base of the beanstalk ahead. It was thick and curly and had huge leaves. It grew right next to an old decrepit shack that was only large enough to have one room inside of it. A little ways behind the beanstalk was a shack. It was a large, elegant manor with yellow bricks and enough chimneys and windows to hold a dozen rooms. Which of those is Jack's house? Connor asked as they approached the beanstalk. Alex looked at it for a moment until she figured it out. The shack must be where Jack lived with his mother when they were poor, and then after he defeated the giant and became rich, they must have built a new home just behind him. They're both his. Connor shrugged. He had no reason to doubt her guess. Look how tall it is, Alex said, once they had reached the base of the beanstalk. It would take a lot of bravery to climb that. Just then they heard a door slam and a man came out of the manor. He was young and tall with short hair and broad shoulders. He was very good looking, but wore a subdued expression. He carried an axe and a log. Look, Alex, Connor whispered. Do you think that's Jack? I don't know, she whispers back. Let's ask him. A man set the log on a chopping block in the front yard and began chopping the log into small pieces. Hi there, Alex said, being extra friendly. Hello, said the man, never looking up from chopping. Are you Jack? Connor asked him. Yep, the man said. Do you need something? No, we're just traveling around, Alex said. We saw your beanstalk from all the way in town and wanted to get a closer look. Many people do, Jack said. I have to chop it down once a week because it grows so fast. His expression barely changed as he chopped the wood. Was he just accustomed to random people approaching his home at the beanstalk and had become numb to it? You have a lovely home, Alex said. Except for the eyesore, the front, Connor said, and nodded toward the shack behind him. Connor, be polite, Alex said. I turned to a wood chop, Jack told him. He finished chopping the wood and collected the pieces in his hands. Went into the shack and slammed the door behind him. Well, someone isn't much of a conversationalist, Connor said. I wonder what's wrong with him. He seems different, Alex said. Have you met him before? Connor asked. Sometimes he wondered if she had forgotten that they are from another world. No, I just mean from the way he's always been described, he said. He was always so energetic and adventurous. I wonder what's troubling him. Maybe he doesn't like people coming to his house, said Connor. If I were him, I would get really annoyed too. Connor had another sarcastic comment to add, but was distracted by a high-pitched sound coming inside the manor. Do you hear that? Connor asked Alex. It sounds like singing. They were both turned to the face of the manor as the set of window shutters were pushed open. Twins would have believed it if they hadn't been so close by, but standing behind the window was a golden woman. She happily sang a soprano ballad, so as loudly as she could. A set of strings played along with her, but the twins couldn't see where the music was coming from. Oh, the day is here, and so am I, the wistfully trees of birds that fly. If I had legs, I see the world and travel away, but I'm only a harp, and the world knows where I shall stay. She turned to face the twins as she sang the final note, and they noticed a set of strings connected on her back. The strings played magically along to her voice. She was a magic harp. Hello, children. I didn't see you there, the harp said. Alex jumped up and down. Are you the magical harp, she asked. The one Jack saved from the giant? The one and only, the harp said, and struck a dramatic pose. And thank God he did, because the giants have terrible taste in music. You wouldn't believe the numbers he used to force me to perform him. All the lyrics about eating sheep and stepping on villagers. Would you like me to sing to you? No, thanks, Connor said. The harp took offense to this. I remember that day like it was yesterday, the harp said. There, I was minding my own business, being a slave to the giant, when suddenly this skinny peasant boy walks by and was like, Hey there, why don't you rescue me? I could use some rescuing. The next thing I knew, we were zooming down the beanstalk, being chased by the giant. Jack chopped down the beanstalk, and the giant fell to his death. Splat! Right into Bo Peep Farms. It was quite a day. How terrifying, Alex said. It was the most excitement I had in 100 years. Anything worked out just wonderfully, though. Jack and his mother became rich, I wasn't a slave anymore, and the Bo Peep family said the giant was the best fertilizer their farm had ever used. That is so wrong, Connor said to himself. What are you two doing here? The Arp asked them with a big smile. Alex and Connor looked at each other, both afraid to answer. We're just visiting, Alex said. We've never been to the Red Riding Hood Kingdom. We were in the town and saw the beanstalk, wanted to see it up close, Connor said. Then welcome, the Harp said. Don't you just love it here? I know I do. I've been around the world and I've never felt more comfortable. It's so safe here. The people are all friendly farmers, and the best part is, no wolves are allowed. Are you two thinking of moving? Wouldn't that be nice? I think you should move here and visit me every day. The Harp was so chatty, and the twins could tell she was desperate for attention. Spending every day cooped in the house couldn't be easy. We're actually on our way home, Connor said. We just have to make a stop at Red Riding Hood's castle, and then we'll be on our way. We've never been before. We should have Jack take you, the Harp said. He's heading there this afternoon to meet with Queen Red Riding Hood. He is, Alex said. Oh, yes, the Harp said. He visits her at the end of every week and brings her a homemade basket every time. The Harp looked inside, side to side, to make sure no one else was listening, but there was no one in sight. Now, you didn't hear this from me, the Harp said, excitedly with gossip in her eyes. Queen Red Riding Hood calls him to the castle every week and proposes to him. Poor Thane has been in love with him since they were kids. Really, Alex said? Does that mean they're getting married? Oh, heavens, no. The Harp said, Jack can't stand her. He turns her down every time. Why would he do that? Doesn't he want to be king? Connor asked. His heart belongs to someone else, the Harp said. Sadly, at the strings on her back played a sad chord. Who does he love? Alex asked. Let me guess, Connor said. Little Miss Muffet? Of course not, the Harp said. Miss Muffet married Georgie Porridge. But as everyone knows, he has had countless affairs, but that's another story. Back to Jack, Alex said. All right, well, I'm not sure who he's in love with. I've never seen her, the Harp said. All I know is he's never been the same since she moved away. Alex and Connor looked at each other with the same questioning expression. Who could it be? Was it the reason he seemed so gloomy? The door of the shack opened, and Jack emerged with the basket made from the pieces of the wood he had just chopped. Hey, Jack, I got a wonderful idea, the Harp called out. Why don't you take these two with you to the castle? They've never seen it. They've never been inside before. Jack seemed hesitant. Please, Mr. Jack, Alex pleaded. We won't be in any trouble. Come on, Jack, make their day, the Harp pleaded. All right, Jack said. Jack turned and began traveling toward the town. The twins ran after him. Thanks so much, Alex called back to help. Harp. You're welcome, the Harp said. Come back and visit me, please. Jack was a very fast walker. His legs were much longer than the twins, so they found it difficult to keep it up with him. It's very kind of you to let us tag along, Alex said to Jack, but he never looked up from the ground. You're not much of a talker, are you? Connor said. I don't have much to say, Jack said. Connor nodded at him. He understood completely. As they neared the town, Alex pulled Connor aside. How lucky is this, she said. If we get inside the castle and get a hold of the basket, we'll be out of the kingdom in no time. They traveled to the town and reached the castle. There was a set of large wooden doors at the castle's entrance. Jack knocked at the door. A moment later, a small window in the middle of the door appeared, and a set of eyes appeared. Who goes there? Said a voice at the other side. It's Jack, Jack said. Again. Who's that behind you? The voice demanded, and the eyes looked over Jack's shoulders to Alex and Connor. They awkwardly waited. Oh, what are your names again? Jack asked the twins. Alex and Connor, Alex told him, gave them a thumbs up. They are my friends, Alex and Connor. They're accompanying me to the castle today, Jack said. The doors opened, and the twins followed Jack into the castle. It felt like a condensed version of Cinderella's palace. The halls weren't quite as so long, and the furniture wasn't quite as nice. There were many portraits hung on the wall, but all of them were of Queen Red Riding Hood at various ages and different poses, each one more grand than the last. The twins waved with Jack in the hall. Outside, another set of doors. Jack knocked on the doors and immediately took a seat on the bench outside of them. This always takes a moment, Jack said. A series of footsteps and sound of rushing came but came from the other side of the doors. Wait, don't open the door, I'm not ready yet, someone whispered. Hand me that cape. No, not that one, the other one, with the hood. Hurry! Jack began to whistle as he waited. How do I look? What about my dress? Does it seem right to you? The whisper continued. All right, little man, quickly. Jack stood up just as the doors were opened by a pink-faced and out-of-breath handmaiden. She escorted Jack inside, and the twins followed. They entered a long room with tall windows on both sides. The walls were covered in more portraits of the queen. Looking up from the floor was a giant wolf head with red eyes and set of sharp teeth. It looked just like the wolves the twins see in the dwarf forest, and it alarmed them at first, before they discovered it was just a wolfskin rug spread out on the floor. The twins knew without asking that the rug must have been the big bad wolf himself at one point. At the very end of the room, perched elegantly, almost too elegantly, was Queen Red Riding Hood. Hello, Jack, Red Riding Hood said. Red Riding Hood was a very pretty young woman, around the same age as Jack. She had bright blue eyes and blonde hair, and was done so glamorously behind her crown. She wore a long red gown with a matching hooded cape and a pink corset. She wore a necklace with a massive diamond. Her shoulders were completely bare, and she wore a pair of long gloves with a dozen sparkling rings on her fingers. She was showing too much skin, wearing too much makeup, and was dressed too well for the middle of the day. Hello, Red, Jack said. What a surprise! I wasn't even expecting you, she said. Uh-huh, Jack said. I see you brought guests, Red asked. She was not happy to see that she and Jack were not alone. Yes, this is Alex and Connor, Jack said. Hello, Alex said bashfully. What's up, Red? Connor said, and was then elbowed by his sister. Hello, Red said behind a clenched and very fake smile. Welcome to my castle. Please, have a seat. Red clapped her hands and two servants placed a large cushy chair right next to her throne for Jack to sit on. They brought Alex and Connor each a small stool to sit on some distance away from Red and Jack. Jack moved the chair back away from the throne a couple of feet before sitting on it. He handed Red the basket he made for her. Is this for me? Red asked him. Oh, how thoughtful of you. You're just so sweet, too sweet for words. I'll cherish it. You always do, Jack said. So, tell me, what's new with you? Red asked Jack. She was leaning toward him as far as she possibly could without falling off her throne. Nothing much, Jack said. Same old, same old. His body language made it obvious that he was ready to leave from the minute he sat down. How's the kingdom? Oh, I've never bothered myself with all that talk of economy and security and peasant needs and blah, blah, blah. Red said, my granny takes care of all that for me. She's much better than I would be anyway. Red got tired of holding the basket. She snapped her fingers, and her handmaid collected the basket from her. Put it with the others, Red instructed. The handmaid collected it from her and headed out of the room. Twins figured it was their chance. May we see the others? Alex said. The others? Red asked. The other baskets, Alex said. Red was looking at her peculiarly. My brother loves baskets. Connor nodded, going along with it. I do. They're my most favorite thing ever, Connor said. You know what they say, life is better with baskets. Red was staring at them as they were the strangest people she had met in her life. If you wish, Red said, and shooed them off. Alex and Connor jumped up and followed the handmaiden out of the room and down the hall. Where does Queen Red Riding Hood keep all the baskets? Alex asked the handmaiden, then winked at Connor. She wasn't very good at playing dumb. She has a chamber dedicated entirely to baskets, the handmaiden said. She has a basket room, Connor asked. Yes, and if you received as many as she did a year, you would too, the handmaiden said. How many are you talking about? Connor said. You'll see, she said. The handmaiden opened the door, and the three of them walked inside. The room was twice the size of the room they had just been and was filled from floor to ceiling with thousands and thousands of baskets. They were on shelves, some were stacked neatly, and others were just piled around the room. The handmaid tossed the basket from Jack in a pile on one side of the room. "The Queen gets them for birthdays, holidays, and any special occasion," the handmaid said. "Some are from villagers, some from friends, others from the monarchs of neighboring kingdoms." Alex Connor stared around the room with their mouths open. How could they ever find the basket they were looking for in all of this? "Do you mind if we have a look around?" Alex managed to say through her shock. "I suppose," the handmaid said. She looked at the twins curiously, and then left them inside the basket room. The twins could barely breathe. They both felt as if a dumbbell had suddenly been tied to their chests. "I have never felt so overwhelmed in my life," Connor declared. "This is like trying to do the whole summer break packet of homework the day before school starts again. But 1,000 times worse. How are we going to look through all these?" "It's not that bad," Alex tried convincing him, but she didn't convince herself. "We just need a start. You take one side, I'll take the other. Let's do this." They split and rapidly began looking through the piles and piles of baskets, and for the one with the bark rim, they knew they didn't have much time and grew more anxious after each second. They had no idea where there could be so many shapes and sizes and designs for baskets, like snowflakes, for each one was different from another. Alex was paranoid that she had missed it. Connor kept getting splinters and kept shouting, "Ah!" every time it happened. They had been there for almost an hour and still didn't cover even a fourth of the room. They were making a huge mess. The room was twice as disorganized now as it had been when they entered it. Even Alex wasn't hesitating throwing around the baskets that she already examined. "This is impossible," Connor yelled, kicking a pile of baskets. Just as he kicked a pile, the door swung open. And the handmaid returned. Alex kind of froze. She was appalled by the chaos they had caused. "I don't know what on earth you're doing, but I think it's time for you two to leave," she said. The handmaid escorted them back to the throne room. This time, she watched them like a hawk as they sat on their stools. Red Riding Hood was literally hanging off her throne, and grabbing hold of Jack's chair, she talked to him. The twins have never seen Jack look so bored and lifeless. Neither of them have noticed the twins' return. "You know, Jack," she said, circling his forearm with her finger, "the Red Riding Hood Kingdom isn't much of a kingdom without a king." "Perhaps you should change the name to the Red Riding Hood Queendom," Jack said. Red laughed much harder than she should have. "You're so funny, but that's not what I meant. What I'm trying to tell you, Jack, is that I've never been more ready to get married. If someone asked me for my hand in marriage today, I would say yes. Do you know anyone who might be interested in marrying me? In being king? Anyone?" A white dove suddenly flew by one of the windows outside and sat on the window ledge. As soon as Jack saw it, he entered. The entire face lit up. His eyes grew wide, and he smiled. For once, he looked happy. He turned to Red clearly. She wasn't used to seeing him like this, either. Twins could practically see her heart beating out of her chest as excitement filled her body. Was he going to propose? Was this the moment she had been waiting for so long? "Red," Jack said. "Yes, Jack," Red said. "I have to go," she said, jumping up and heading out the throne room. Red almost fell to her throne. "Go," she said. "Go where?" "Home," Jack called out, not even looking her back. "I'll see you next week." Red crossed her arms and pouted. He was the only thing preventing her from having everything. The twins felt it was best to leave with Jack, so they followed him out of the castle. "It was wonderful meeting you, Alex Connor," Jack said. She shook their hands. "Likewise," Alex said. "Thanks again for taking us to the castle." "My pleasure. I hope to run into you someday soon," Jack said, and then headed to the direction of his home with a new bounce in his step. It was very strange. Jack was now acting like the person Alex had always thought he would be. What is that guy's deal? How does someone go from a zombie to a camp counselor in a matter of seconds? Connor said. I don't know, Alex said after looking at him as he walked away. He's a very odd man. Look at this pretty kitty. Looks like we'll be sneaking into the castle after all, Connor said, and slumped to a seated position on the ground. At least we know what to expect tonight. We already went through a good portion of the basket, Alex said. We just had to wait until midnight. And in the meantime, I could really use a nap, Connor said. The twins traveled up to the street and booked a room at the Shoe Inn. Nope. The room had perfect view of Red Riding Hood's castle. It was somewhere near the Shoe's tongue, because a set of laces crossed through one of their walls. The room also had a working bathtub, and they both took turns using it, since they hadn't been able to bathe in so long. This was the best bath I think I'll ever have, Connor said. They both decided to rest for a little bit, and as soon as their bodies touched their... Oh, jeez. That was the cat. They both decided to rest for a little bit as soon as their bodies touched the bed. They both fell asleep into a deep sleep. They slept for a few hours and woke up shortly before midnight. What's our game plan for tonight? Connor said. It'll be the first time we'll ever be breaking and entering anywhere, so I'm extra anxious. Let's take account of everything we have now, Alex said, and dump all the contents of their bag into the bed. We have 2 blankets, a bag of gold coins, a dagger, a lock of Rapunzel's hair, a glass slipper, a map, a journal, and a satchel of food, Alex listed. Can we use the dagger to cut a chunk of wood off the basket? But it's going to be dark. We'll need some light. Let's take these lanterns, Connor said, and gather lanterns that were on the bedside. Great, Alex said. We should plan on leaving the kingdom right after, just in case we run into some trouble. We'll head to the east entrance of the kingdom, and that'll bring us close to the border of the fairy kingdom. Connor lowered his head. I was so looking forward to coming back to this bed. At 1:45 Alex and Connor gathered all their things, lit their lanterns, and left the Shoe Inn. They walked across town to the castle. It was so quiet at night. Not even farm animals were up this late. Get off my computer. At a quarter... They hid behind Humpty Dumpty's wall and watched through the castle's windows. As guards patrolled the halls. Just a few more minutes and they'll leave, Alex said. A few minutes later, they saw fewer and fewer guards walk past the windows. Are they gone? Connor said. They must be, Alex said. Let's go. They ran around to the back of the castle and saw a large kitchen through a set of windows. They hopped across the moat. They knew they'd be able to, and pulled at the window. Like the journal had said, it didn't even have a lock, and it opened easily. Alex crawled into the kitchen first. She was as quiet as possible. The only sound she came from was the intense beats of her heart. Connor climbed in after and knocked over a stack of pots and pans. Alex was mortified. I'm going to kill you, she mouthed to him. Sorry, he mouthed back to her. They waited for a moment to see if anyone had heard the disturbance, but no one had. The twins left the kitchen and found themselves in a hallway with, to no surprise, more portraits of Red Riding Hood. That Red Riding Hood sure loves having her portrait painted, Connor said. Maybe there are so many paintings of her because she's the first monarch of the kingdom she ever had. It doesn't have the history of the Charming Kingdom, Alex said. Or she's just a self-obsessed twit, Connor said. They traveled down the hall, then another one, then up the set of stairs and down another hall. Do you know where we're going? Connor asked. I thought it was following you, Alex said. What? Since when do you follow me? Connor said. A shadow was creeping toward them from down the hall. As it got closer, they could see it was the silhouette of a guard. A guard, she whispered, and pointed at the shadow. They ran down the hall and entered the first room they found. The room was pitch black. Where are we now? Connor asked. Why are you asking me the questions you know I don't have the answers to? Alex said. Alex waited by the door and listened for the guard to pass by. Connor moved around the room with his hands stretched out in the darkness so he wouldn't bump into anything. Their eyes began to adjust to the darkness. Alex, I think I can see something. Connor walked right into what he thought was a doorway and suddenly saw a pale face staring back at him. He fell to the floor with fear. He screamed as quiet as he could. Alex, there's someone standing over the door in the way. He's so creepy and ugly, Connor said, pointing up. Alex ran to his side and squinted his eyes to see what he was. That's not a doorway. That's a mirror, you idiot, Alex said. Oh, Connor said, I think. Alex hopped to his feet. Oh my, what big claws you have, said a voice behind Alex and Connor, causing them both to jump 5 feet into the air. They turned to see an enormous 4-poster bed with silky red sheets and lacy white curtains around it. In the bed, talking in her sleep, was Queen Red Riding Hood. We're in the Queen's bedroom, Connor whispered to Alex. Cat. Oh my, what big nose you have, Grandma Red said, still in very much sleep. Is she having a nightmare? Connor asked. Oh my, what big sharp teeth you have. Wolf! Red screamed and sat straight up in her bed awake. Alex Connor dropped to the floor, out of her view. She was out of breath, and beads of sweat appeared on her forehead. She finally caught her breath. Not again, she said, and then, frustrated, lay back to sleep. Alex and Connor were afraid to move. Did you go back to sleep yet? Connor asked. How are we supposed to tell? Alex said. Oh my, what big strong arms you have, Jack, Red said. I'm guessing she's asleep, Connor said, and confidently stood. Oh my, what soft lips you have, Jack, Red said. Let's get out of here before we hear her describe anything else, Connor said. They emerged back into the hall and traveled around the castle for a while longer. All the halls looked so familiar, it seemed impossible to find the basket room. Every time they thought they had found the right room, they found themselves in a drawing room, or dining room, or ballroom. Let's find the entrance and retrace our steps to the throne room, Alex began, but Connor interrupted her. No need. The baskets are in there, he said, and pointed the door beside them. How do you know? Alex asked him. Because I remember that portrait of Red next to the basket room, Connor said, and pointed to a portrait where Red Riding Hood was barely clothed with only a wolfskin coat to cover it. Alex gave Connor a really dirty look. What? Connor said with a smirk. It's memorable. They pushed the door open and found the room they had spent the entire afternoon in earlier. Cat. Let's take it from where we left off, Alex said. She and Connor split up and headed to the areas they had last searched. It had been hard during the day, but it was even harder at night, since they had only light from their lanterns to go by. After a few hours of searching, their anxiety levels were as high as Jack's beanstalk. Suddenly, the twins heard a loud clank. What was that? Alex said. Alex, look up there, Connor said, pointing at a window. One of the window's ledges was a shiny egg-shaped object. What is that? Alex said. It's a grappling hook, Connor said. It jerked slightly to a consistent pattern. I think someone's climbing up. Hide! They let their lanterns out on the ground and dove behind a pile of baskets. A moment later, a figure appeared on the window ledge. They took out a sharp knife and cut out a large circle on the window and then quietly crawled into the room. It was a woman who the twins had never seen before. Her clothing was made out of plant leaves sewn together, and her hair was a shade of brown so dark it almost seemed purple. The woman scanned the room and looked cautiously at the 2 lanterns. Did she know the twins were in there? Like an animal, the woman began sniffing around the room. She searched through the baskets as she sniffed, discarding some by tossing them behind her. She went around the room, using her nose as her guide, until finally she locked in on one direction. She climbed on top of a pile of baskets to reach the top of a shelf. She reached her hand to the back of the shelf and pulled out a basket. It had a rim of tree bark. Connor and Alex looked at each other. There it is! The woman carved a big chunk of bark off the basket and then tucked it safely into her belt. She put the basket back on the shelf and climbed down the pile of baskets and headed for the window. She was about to climb through the window when she heard an "ah" come from the other side of the room. Connor had given himself another splinter from hiding behind the baskets. "Connor!" Alex mouthed. "Sorry," he mouthed back. The woman walked toward where they were hiding. She squinted in their direction for a moment. Alex and Connor were both too frightened even to breathe. They knew she knew they were there. What was she going to do to them? The woman looked at the ground and one of their lanterns, and a coy smile appeared on her face. She kicked into a pile of baskets and disappeared through the window and back down the rope connected to the grappling hook. "That was a close one," Connor said. "Good thing she didn't find us and we'd be—" "Connor, look!" Alex said. A pile of baskets the woman had kicked the lantern to was on fire. "Oh boy," Connor said. "We gotta get out of here. Not until I get a piece of that basket," Alex said. She reached into her bag and pulled out the dagger. She ran up the pile of baskets on top of the shelf, as she had been seen the woman do. She wasn't as tall as the woman, so she had to reach further to get it. "Alex, hurry," Connor said. The fire was growing and spreading around the room to the different piles and stacks of baskets. He tried blowing the fire out, but it didn't work. These were large flames, not birthday candles. Alex had to climb up into the shelf to reach the basket, but she finally wrapped her fingers around it. "Gotcha," Alex said before pulling it out. The bark around the rim had two chunks missing, one from whoever had read the journal and the other from whoever that woman was. Alex sank her dagger into the basket and began cutting down a piece out of it. "Alex, unless you want to leave this place extra crispy, I suggest you hurry," Connor yelled. Half the room was ablaze. It was become unbearably hot inside the room. Dark smoke was filling the air, making it hard to breathe. "I got it," Alex said, and made her way down to Connor. The flames had covered the door they entered from. "How do we get out of here?" Alex yelled. A sound of running footsteps came from the hall outside the door. Through the flames, the twins could see the faces of several alarmed guards. "Fire! Fire in the castle!" a guard yelled. "Get the queen to safety! Get some water!" Another guard pointed directly to the twins. "You two, stay where you are!" "Not likely!" Connor yelled. He picked up a particularly heavy basket and threw it at a window, causing it to shatter. He grabbed his sister's hand and pulled her toward it. They breathed in the fresh air from outside. "Look, the watermill is right below us," Connor said, and started climbing out of the window and down toward it. He helped his sister out of the window, and they climbed down the watermill together. Halfway down, flames burst through all the windows in the basket room. The entire room was an inferno. The watermill began to turn from the twins. Wait, and they fell straight into the moat, which would have been such a rough landing. The moat had been deeper than 3 feet. The twins clambered out of the moat and began running as fast as they could away from the castle. No guards or soldiers were chasing them. They all must have been inside the castle trying to put out the fire. Alex and Connor ran on town and were on their way toward the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom in a matter of minutes. They only looked back once and saw that almost half the castle was on fire. A thick trail of smoke filled the sky. "Was that the 4th or 5th time we were nearly escaped death this week?" Connor asked. "Who was that woman?" Alex asked. "And why was she looking for the basket too?" "Thank God she found it, otherwise we might never have," Connor said. The most worrisome thought came to Alex's mind. "Connor, do you think someone else is collecting items for the wishing spell, do you?" He had to think about it, but she could see it was just troubling for him to consider it was as it was for her. "I doubt it," Connor said. "I think about all the trouble the man who wrote the journal went through to learn about it. I'd be shocked if someone else knew anything about it, Alex added. They both knew it was very unlikely, but the possibility still lingered in their heads. A few hours later, the twins could see the eastern gate of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom wall in the distance. The guards must have extinguished the fire in the castle because there is no more smoke filling the air. The night sky was at its darkest just before dawn. As they reached the gate, they could see something moving near it. Spooked from the events earlier, Alex Connor dove behind a bush and watched from afar. It was a man pacing near the gate. He was tall and seemed young. There was something oddly familiar about him. Is that Jack? Alex asked. Connor took a closer look. It is. What is he doing all the way out here? Suddenly, a hooded figure came into view on the other side of the gate. Who is that? Connor asked. Jack carefully approached the gate. There is so much tension between him and whoever was on the other side of the gate that even the twins could feel it. He had been waiting for whoever it was all night. Hello, Jack, said the hooded figure. Hello, Goldie, he said. And then the twins realized who it was. Goldilocks. She was wearing the dark maroon coat they had seen her wear in the dwarf forest. How do they know each other? Alex asked. Connor shook his head. No idea. I saw your dove, Jack said. I knew you must have seen it. I did, Goldilocks said. I knew you would recognize it. Doves are hard to train these days. The twins couldn't tell from the way they were standing that Goldilocks and Jack had much to say to each other, but they said very little. Instead, they just stared into each other's eyes, with their bodies pressed against the bars between them. I hate these bars between us, Jack said. It's either the bars of this gate or the bars of a prison cell, I'm afraid, Goldilocks said. I worry about you constantly, Jack said. I'm a big girl. I can take care of myself, Goldilocks said. I wish you could let me come with you, Jack said. I pack my things and I leave right now if you would let me. No sense in ruining two lives, Goldilocks said. You'll find someone else someday. You've been saying that since you left, yet here I am, year after year, meeting you in the shadows, Jack said. She's the one he's in love with, Alex said, putting the pieces together. She is the reason Jack won't marry Red Riding Hood. She is the girl the harp was telling us about. Oh, Connor said. This is like a soap opera. Jack placed his hands over Goldilocks' hands. I swear, if I ever find the person who wrote that letter, I'll kill them, Jack said. They're the reason for this whole mess. What is done is done. It can never be undone, Goldilocks said. She and Jack were touching foreheads through the bars. One day I'll clear your name, Jack said. I promise. And then we can be together. Clear my name? Goldilocks said, and backed away from him. I'm a fugitive, Jack. I steal, I run, I even kill when I have to. No one can clear me of that. It's who I am. It's what I've become. It didn't start off as you fall, and you know it, Jack said. Goldilocks grew silent. I love you, Jack said. And I know you love me. You don't have to say it back. I just know. I'm a criminal, and you're a hero, Goldilocks said, with teary eyes. A flame I love, a snowflake, but it can never be together without harming the other. Then let me melt, Jack said. He reached through the gate and pulled Goldilocks close to him, and they kissed. It was passionate, pure, and long overdue. Alex became misty-eyed, and Connor scrunched his face as if he smelled something foul. Good thing these bars are between them, Connor said. Shut up, Connor, Alex said. Goldilocks pushed herself away from Jack. I have to go, she said. I have to be far away from this place as I can get by sunrise. Let me come with you, Jack begged. No, Goldilocks said. When will I see you next? A week? A month? A year? He asked. Porridge walked up behind Goldilocks. She leaped up to the horse's back and took hold of the reins. Just wait for the dove, she said, and rode off into the night on her cream-colored horse. Jack watched her until she wasn't visible anymore. Suddenly, all the life in his body faded away, and he once again became the sad man the twins had met earlier. He sadly turned away from the gate and slowly headed home. I guess not every tale character gets a happily ever after, Alex said. Alex and Connor ran up to the gate. It was locked, so they had to climb over it, finally making their way out of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom just as the sun started to rise. I hope you enjoyed chapter 10. Sorry it's so long with how my cat is being an ass. I hope you enjoyed reading it. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone to watch these. And later on there will be a review at the end of the book. And hope you enjoyed this as much as I do. Bye!